Today we have the poem The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. William Butler Yeats is one of the most iconic Irish poets. He is the most famous, you could say, of the poets who brought forth the Irish Renaissance. He was an Anglo Irish Protestant poet. He studied and he grew up in London, but he was born in Dublin, Ireland, and throughout his life, he identified with that part of himself. And he was very much influenced by poets like William Blake, Keats, William Wordsworth, and yet at the same time, though there was this romantic strain in his poetry, there was also a very fierce longing for Irish nationalism, for which he was a great proponent. So, here in this poem, The Lake Isle of Innisfree, let us look at the topic. The very title itself, the word Innisfree, is of Irish origin. It is an actual lake belonging to Ireland. The poet remembers the times of his childhood, which he would spend at his grandparents' home, and this particular lake, here it is definitely it is a poem that is taking us to nature, but yet at the same time it is a longing for his homeland. He remembers this place as a call, a wake up call for the Irish Renaissance to wake up, to own their own literature. So this was written in 1888. Here we see the poem is very small, it's only 12 lines, but it is so intense. This is the poem you will find in the Irish passport. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud glade. Here the poet wishes to be in Innisfree. He wants to go to that lovely lake. That beautiful isle means a little island. So there is that small, beautiful island in his homeland. He wishes to go there and live a solitary life. He says, I will build a small cabin of clay and wattles. Wattles is those those kind of cabins where you build it with mud and sticks, not a luxurious cottage or a house, but rather a tiny cabin in the woods. What are the words that come to our mind? Being self sufficient, being so organic, being one with nature, where only he would be in touch with nature. So this was a strain used by the romantic poets too. He says 9 bean rows will I have there, that he would plant, he would do his own farming, he would live on his own, he would have a hive for the honey bee, he would be making honey and planting, so that back to nature. And this also makes us think, the way the visual imagery comes, it makes us also think of man in tune with nature, and live alone in the bee loud glade. He wants to immerse himself. Is he walking like Wordsworth, like Wordsworth walking among the daffodils, looking at the daffodils and saying that, this memory I shall hold forever? Or is our poet sitting far away and thinking of Innisfree? Now, this is a question that you have to think about as you read the poem. So the visual imagery, this is one of the most important components of this poem. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. Then he says, if I go back to Innisfree, I will find some peace there. Yes, in that rustic, totally organic village atmosphere, in that island where all is quiet, he will find peace there. Peace comes dropping slow. And he says that dropping from the veils of the morning, a veil is a sort of covering. It is a cover that a veil could be used as a woman uses a cover or a cloth on her head, or veil is to cover any meaning. Could it be a revelation that is slowly seeping into the poet? And he says there is the cricket singing. Cricket is a small creature that is continuously making noise in that island. It is found there. And that early dawn. So it is so highly symbolic, this poem, that the dawn, is it the dawn of true Irish revival, as well as the poet's longing as a grown up, though he has grown up and is studying and working in London, is this call back to his homeland, telling him to, hold up the torch. Their midnights all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evenings full of the linnet's wings. So now there's the cricket singing, auditory imagery has come into the picture. The midnight is all a glimmer. Why do you think the midnight is a glimmer? The stars are shining on the lake. What a wonderful image. Again, visual imagery. The stars are reflecting. And the midnight, that this very sky reflected in the lake. And noon is a purple glow. Again, the word purple, that color is what the flowers, the heather, the flowers are blooming purple all over those hills in Ireland. So all these images come to our mind. There is an autobiographical element in the poem because the poet is thinking about his homeland. And then there is also an allusion to that, to his childhood. Yet again, the last four lines, I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear the lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. Now we come to the most important part. That question has come to us. Is the poet standing in the Isle of Innisfree and talking about it? Or is he far away? And the third, right from the beginning, there is a very important word that tells you he is not there. I will arise and go now. The words arise and go. He is wanting to go to that place. That place is calling him. And he says, day and night, in every heartbeat, in my sighs, I hear the lake water. It is calling me, lapping with the low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements grey. Suddenly the poet has taken us away from Innisfree, where it is purple and sparkling, to the grey pavements of London. It is grey, it is dull. More than 5 million people are working in that dull grey town of London. There is a lot of misery, there is not enough hygiene. The people are working in strained conditions, and he too, our poet too, is struggling there. While all the time in his heart there is the lake of Innisfree calling him back. I hear it, the last line is very important. While I stand on the roadway or on the pavement grey, I hear it in the deep heart's core, in my innermost heart's core. I hear that call back to Ireland. So visual imagery, repetition is also there. Auditory imagery, the lake water, the cricket singing. Then repetition is I will arise, and repeated, and I shall. Then alliteration is there. Alliteration is used so that the sound of the lake water itself comes to us. For example, lake, lake lapping low sounds by the shore. Lake and low and lapping, all these sounds make us think of the repetitive movement of water. So very important, alliteration is also there. Word meanings as wattles are twisted sticks, mixed with the mud and used to make a cabin. Glade is a clearing in an open space. Linnet. Linnet is a small bird that belongs to the finch family, and it's found, a lot of those birds are found in that isle. So Yeats revived Irish literature, and this was one of his most famous poems. In fact, it is said that the poet was not so happy that this turned out to be one of his most famous poems during his lifetime. It was something that people identified with the Irish Renaissance. If you can see that the perfect, proper iambic pentameter formation is not used here. He is deviating or changing it from the very anglicized format to making it more of the Irish countryside music. And this has been used in various compositions of music, in movies. It has been even the used in albums and movies, and has also been the the inspiration for so many works of art. So the uh, rhyme is A B A B. So Innisfree, honeybee, made, glade. So A B format is there. Then this also reminds us, one of the points you can remember is transcendentalism. Transcendentalism is used here, of reaching a higher plane. And Yeats was very much influenced by Henry David Thoreau. So that American poetry also, the influence of American literature also comes here. Walden and Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson, who says that do not be pushed by the problems of life, but rather consider that they are a wake up call to you. Yet another very important and very beautiful illusion here is I will arise. This very words, the I will arise, comes from the Bible, from Luke 15. It is the parable of the prodigal son. And the prodigal son says these very important words. The story goes that the biblical story is that a father who provides equally for his sons, the youngest son is unhappy and he goes away. He goes away from the father, and he is forced to look after pigs and be a shepherd, and in very filthy conditions. And he repents that he had given up on his father and his family, and he feels so sad. And there is that line, biblical line, saying, I will arise and go now. So this is also an illusion that comes to mind, because here, in a way, as the prodigal son returns to the father, and the Bible also says that the father most happily and benevolently receives him back. And the very famous parable of the fatted calf being slaughtered and the feast thrown for the prodigal son. So it is when Yeats, the young and very popular poet living in England, is getting that wake up call to go back, and the prodigal son is accepted. All these feelings he is able to bring into this brilliant 12 lines. So this is a poem that makes us continually think, for even a person of modern times too. Are we going back to our authentic self? Are we answering the call that is in the core of our heart, fighting for our ideals, our beliefs? These are the questions that the modern generation can still take from Yeats' poem. So, we are also made to think of all the great philosophers like Gautama Buddha, who went after the philosophical yearnings of the questions of the mind. So this is an amazingly beautiful poem of Irish literature. Other two very popular figures of Irish literature would be Lady Gregory and John Synge. Thank you.